John's smiling at me, so he must have really enjoyed coming up with this talk. And thank you, Aaliyah. It really is an interesting talk. I've never given a talk like this before, so it was a lot of fun to put together. These are my disclosures. Maybe I was asked to give this talk because I have a few, and many of them are relevant to what we're going to be talking about here today. So I just kind of want to set the scene. This illustration is from a paper I was on with one of our gastroenterologists, but really pay attention to the red lettering and numbers. And this is the market. So when we talk about devices, I mean, Dr. Nissen didn't have to worry about this. He just kind of did his thing. This is the market, and the bottom is the really big thing. I estimate that there are 13.2 million folks out there that would benefit from anti-reflux surgery today. The latest data that we have is about 20,000 anti-reflux procedures are performed, about 20,000 Payors. So the patients, the medical community, they're not picking up what we're putting down. And that's why there's this huge market. Poor Dr. Nissen, I did this slide obviously before he took it on the chin really badly today in all of the talks. But really it remains our gold standard, and and we compare it to everything. Even the new EGS trial is going up against Nissen. But the devices have it worse. I don't know if anyone has taken out an angel chick, but I have taken out one. It wasn't fun. That didn't work. This is EndoCinch. That didn't work. We've got another plicator. That didn't work. We've got lots of injectables. Enterix was the latest and fastest to fall. It was probably the shortest-lived GERD device company ever, and they have lots of different things that you can't pronounce to inject into the LES, but also into the aorta, so I don't recommend doing it. And even EndoStem has just taken a fall after close to almost $100 million, about $89 million of funding. And I think this will be a talk for another day because it may be coming back, so more to come. So maybe the answer was magnets. And we've all heard about Lynx. That's Todd Berg, who came up with the device. And then he went to Tom DeMeester and said, hey, what do you think? And of course he laughed. And then he's like, wait a second, that's dynamic. Let's talk about this. And we all know about the Lynx stuff, and we've talked about it here today multiple times. But this slide shows how long it took them to go get to market. So it was actually being designed in the late 90s, but then when Dr. DeMeester got involved in 2005, and finally, they make it in 2012 to get FDA approved. That's a lot of money, and it's a lot of time that the investors, it's not Todd Berg, I mean, the investors are having to put in. That's basically venture capital and private equity, right? And this is the letter that everybody wants to get. You've been approved. But this talk was fun to put together for a number of reasons, because I got to talk to lots of folks about their feelings on innovation and things. And really, the FDA letter is the easiest part. At least it's a process that they can understand. It's kind of like a Medicare payment. It may be low, but at least there's a process and you'll usually get paid. So where's the real battle? The real battle is here. And I can't see if Scott Roth is still in the back. He was here earlier. But it's really the CPT, getting a CPT code, and then getting medical coverage. And that's, in my opinion, the real barrier to innovation in this space. So let's talk about Lynx a little bit. It was a true battle to get a CPT code. Frankly, Sages did not want to support it. And the company had to go to the American Society of General Surgeons. That's really kind of gone now. But to support the code, then when they finally got the code, and the RUC stands for Relative Value System Update Committee, but it's an AMA committee. They said, okay, Sages, you hated the Lynx, why don't you administer the survey, because that's a Sages thing. And so they sent out a survey, maybe some of you got it. How long does it take to do a Lynx? How hard is it? Of course, we general surgeons were like, oh, it takes about 15 or 20 minutes in my amazing hands. And then, for some bizarre reason, it was compared against a breast biopsy and a endoscopic Zenkers. The net result for you, the membership, is a work RVU of 10.13. That's terrible. As most of you know, that's effectively under what a lab chole is. That's pathetic. Then you get the medical coverage. Okay, so at least we got it in we know how much we're going to get paid. Let's go out and do it. Well, sorry. As soon as we got a code, for the links, then Medicare pulled their coverage because they said there wasn't enough data. There is HCSC, which is the largest blue, does cover it. Several smaller carriers cover it, but even now, we only have 65 million folks in the United States that are covered for a links. So if you're a surgeon doing links, you've got to fight a battle. That's another barrier. Finally, we went back based on some of our data from Dr. Houghton's data, looking at hiatal hernia repairs and links, and that seemed to work. I was frankly a little bit alarmed. They never told us. We started talking about doing this. We did the studies just out of curiosity. Thorax took them straight to the FDA and said, "Hey, we want to do this." Well, I could see the handwriting on the wall that this was going to be a disaster potentially, because suddenly everything looks like a hernia, right? We talked about what is a hernia. And the fact of the matter is that most of the links that are being placed today are being coded as 281 codes or 282 codes. That's inappropriate. But you can understand how it's happening, because you're looking at 10 RVUs versus 26 or even 30. And so it's a slippery slope that we've got to maintain some integrity. Do we need a new code for this? The answer from SAGES and ACS and others is no. There's a lot of politics behind that, but it basically goes to the fact that if we start breaking open these codes and letting a bunch of medical doctors on the RUC committee look at these, they're going to downgrade the paraesophageal hernia codes, and the Nissen code for that matter, which happens to be about 18 RVUs. Okay, and then now we talked about links on sleeve. I won't go into it, but this is J&J, who now owns Lynx, the Lynx technology. They're like, hey, look, we just finished a study on this. We're collating the data. We're going to go and ask for another code. And the question is, what is SAGES going to do? What are we surgeons going to do? Do we need a new code for this? What's the appropriate approach? So TIF from Endogastric Solutions, similar story. I'll move along, but you can see here, of course it was a 510K device, meaning that there was prior technology. It took them only 4 years to get the FDA approval, but 10 years to get a code. Again, you've got investors who are trying to get their money back and wondering what is going on. And so if you talk to Skip Baldino, I mean, it's rounds and rounds and rounds of funding. And then, I'm gonna go back. They finally also did the same thing. Actually, they got the indication for the kind of CTIF in 2017, a year before Lynx. And then you can see at the far right, looking at the new CTIF randomized control, multi-center randomized control trial, which I'm part of, and USC and Mayo and a few others, UCI. So we're excited about that. So again, what's the RVU for a TIF? Why isn't it being done? Why are we suddenly doing all sorts of CTIFs? You got to look at the money. I mean, and it's a fair thing to do, but a straight TIF is 7.7 RVUs. I mean, it takes just as long, frankly, as a regular old operation. Where's the data? But a CTIF, well, suddenly you're either doing it yourself or you're splitting it with your GI, and actually you can increase the RVUs because it's a different specialty. So very interesting. And so what are we going to do with that? Do we need a new code? Again, do we want to look at the old codes? Because we got the Nissen code, it's pretty rich. We definitely have our para codes, which are pretty rich. What's their coverage? It's still pretty poor, but they have about twice as many lives covered as the links, primarily because they've got Medicare coverage. So what are the challenges to innovation? The FDA, certainly, and that's time and money. But the FDA is the easy part when you talk to innovators in this space. Certainly the private equity, venture capital money comes in and they want their money fast. And this is just not a great way to do it, as you could see from the timelines I've shown. And then the real question, and I think this is the answer, a big part of the barrier is us, both as individual surgeons, as society members, to go out and advocate for ourselves. Part of the problem with patients and medical community not picking up what we're putting down is that we can't seem to scale these procedures. The minute you start letting links into folks that maybe don't know how to do a Nissen or do a toupee, they're not experts in foregut surgery, we start to have bad outcomes. Again, companies go down. So we got to find something that's easy and scalable for our patients, because there are not enough SAGES members and ACS members to do all of the anti-reflux surgery that's out there. Finally, again, SAGES, ACS, and AFS, we all need to come together and figure out the right approach to get we surgeons paid appropriately and fairly for the things that we do. And so I would urge everybody to really push our societies to advocate on our behalf, which they're doing, and part of it right now is just that we don't want to open up the old codes, but we've got to be able to help new innovative technology in this space. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.